Evening, fellow zombies. Are we alive yet? Are we awake yet? Because there sure as hell ain't. The Diary of the Griever named John Weaver, which is me, is on the air. 3:11 in the morning, West Coast time, December 5th, 2025. Still dealing with She Must Be Obeyed. Yeah, she's stressing again. I guess the older she's getting, the more complaints she's getting, and more she needs attention. And sometimes it's either good or bad attention. And speaking of which, this one's been rounding so many times that I'm catching up on some of the progressives out there. They call themselves kids. I call themselves. Yeah, they're still talking about this student back in the Midwest that gotten viral attention throughout the internet, and who's made a bad publicity for her own professor in a psychology class who was trying to have the students write up a report on gender. I hadn't seen the work. I'm seeing the after effects of what they're talking about, and I hadn't quite seen the entire essay, but nor have I seen the complete material that the professor is doing. It's not mine because I'm not in that college, I'm not in that class, and I'm not going to deal with that one. But the after effects, I am dealing with it because I think the student's wrong, I think the professor's right, and the student ought to get a life. I am a college student. I've been a student all of my life. K through 12, you go through it. I did 11th grade twice because I screwed up in the 11th grade. Put down a record. Got into college, community college, not the big universities, just community college to get my feet wet in it. And because I didn't have the proper skills and the proper attitude in there, I had to work my way up to get to a level at the second year, actually at the completion of the second year, only to discover that my grades weren't good enough, the GPA sucked, and the college gave me a year out. Gave me an academic separation, which pissed off my mother when I was living under her roof as a teenager growing up to be a young man. She gave me two options: homeless or work my ass off full time. No full-time gig, actually no part-time gigs. So 30 plus years later, doing caregiving, I'm doing full-time work. I've taken a couple of business courses, trying to up my job skills, transcription, terminology, billing and coding, office work. They helped me out in a few jobs, and I was still resentful that I could not have completed college, even community college. Opportunity came when my mother passed away in 2013, and my brother and I were on our own, dealing with grief and everything else. My brother and I get this suggestion by somebody to go back to college. Why not? We went. My brother couldn't hack it about after a semester and a half. Health reasons. Me, I'm chowing down. Chowing down on the college courses. The first course was critical thinking and literature, and I screwed up on that one somewhere. Miscommunication skills with the professor. And my writing skills, barely adequate, but I had to get improvement on them. So with each bed of D's or low C's, I was building my skills up, be a mad writer. I had to look at the material, understand the material, write about it. I had taken sociology courses, liberal arts studies actually, which would probably be sociology if I'd taken that one. Psychology, history, health, political science, English. There are courses that want you to be attentive to the material that's presented to you, and for you to bring a report that would communicate your findings and your interests and your understanding of it. Now, if you want to look at it from a simplistic point of view, a book report. More than that. More than that. Compare and contrast. You know what a compare and contrast would be? You're looking at things similar, and then you're looking at things not so similar. I've done plenty of those. Look at the material, see what I can find something similar and what I don't find similar, and write about it. Get a thesis statement, then make your point, then write a conclusion. What's the problem with that? The problem is if you happen to have a material that you're looking at and you think it's beneath you one way or another, you've got an opposite point of view. The professor would love to understand it by you providing examples. When you're doing essays in colleges and universities, they want quotations. Small quotations are fine. Me, I look at the damn context of the thing and I try to put a huge chunk in there and then tear the thing apart. Or lead up to the quotation and then follow through afterwards. A little bit of a technique I got. And the last portion of the essay is the works cited or bibliography. And then you really got to put it in there, in the context in there. Where'd you get your material from? Now, if you're just quoting from one particular book, but the professor is saying that you have to read this other book, how does the two books work together? If I happen to look at something about history or science or something close to methodology or ideology, throwing the ologies in there. Steady up. But then I've got this other book that's biblical. How would the biblical work with the material I've got to produce a report out of it? Now, in the psychology class, there was something about gender being talked about. I didn't see the material. I don't know how this was written up, the question, or any other information I've found yet. I can tell you from past experiences. In the most recent class I've been finishing up on, just today, finishing up on, History 116, and I'm dealing with war and foreign policy. From the Korean War all the way through the Second Gulf War, which included Iraq and Afghanistan. The students I've got are looking, sorry, my hands are itchy. Give me a second here. The students I'm in this online course I'm taking, personal choices when I do the online, because I'm taking care of my dog and I've gotten used to doing online courses because I'm still taking care of my dog who's 24/7 need. If I happen to equate that with an elderly person, which this dog is an elderly canine, but still to me a person, I have to be more attentive to my dog in order to better service this neurotic dog I've got. This dog twice or 3 times in a sentence. How about that one? And the coursework I've been doing, the latest coursework on this one, was talking about the Second Gulf War and about some of the foreign policies, including something about containment, or was it worth it for us to go to war with another country? Well, before I get into that particular situation, you understand our current situation we have with the current regime we voted in November 2024 that's forcing us into another world war, or into another action that we are sure as hell don't want to get ourselves into in the Caribbean, or in South America for that matter. Getting back to the essay situation. I had a book. that was talking about from World War II all the way through the Second Gulf. And there are juicy quotes in there. But having lived through the end of the Vietnam War, all the way through the Gulf War and beyond, I thought it'd give me a little bit of a perspective, a little bit of thing I would understand. And the more I kept looking at the book, I know they were talking about other elements that I hadn't come across. But drawing upon my own personal viewpoints and what I've seen and what I've experienced, I thought that would help me out with discussions with the students on this one. Apparently not. They're looking at the book as if it's the only thing they know how to research. Well, when I looked at the topics that we were going through, and we were going through a lot of discussions, about 12 chapters worth of it, shall I say. 1 week, or maybe 1 week will be about two. Well, it was more, and then whittled down, and we got the final essay, and then the final exam. But even with all that material I've been going through for the past 16 weeks in my junior college year, I still had to look at the material and try to make a judgment call, try to make an analysis of what I understood. And that's what the professor wanted to see. What was my understanding of the material? I looked at the material, I glanced at the material, I wrote about the glance. If I thought I remembered reading this book, I'm saying, well, I thought I read this book, so I'm going to go through that. But I still have to go through chapter per chapter just to see if I'm correct or not. Now, if I was being a real haughty student, like I know what I'm doing here, then my writing would reflect this part. My writing would reflect as much. And I would not get enough out of it. And I've seen some of the students doing the same thing. But it sounded like it was an AI writing thing that they got going on. You know, you go through the AI, artificial intelligence that they would have online to write your essay. Drawing upon other experiences and other sources to create this work. Professors can't stand this shit. They really can't stand this shit. Because it doesn't show the students' writing ability, writing style, how their thought processes are working. And if they happen to look at my thought processes, they're going to think, he's not artificial intelligence, but what the hell is he trying to do? I'm telling a story. Okay, well, tell me a story then. Okay. It's not once upon a time, but this is how it's been on this particular situation, how I lived through this one. Yeah. But since we're talking about this particular war over here that I lived through, watching it on television, how it's scaring the shit out of me left and right, and how we always got our ass kicked out here, why not? See, I had to find a way to relate to the material. I had to find a way to relate to the professor. I had to find ways of dealing with it. Not just one source I draw upon, but many to make a point across. If I got something to say, I got to say it. I got to find things to pull out of my ass, or pull off the internet anyway, they pull out of my ass, and put it into a context that the professor can understand. If he's just doing something about one particular topic, fine. If he's giving you a book to look at, fine. What are you going to write about? What does it make you think, feel, understand, analyze, critical think on the damn thing? Not just go through another book or another source of material and use that ultimately and not the original. It doesn't work that way. Professors have a way of looking at it and thinking, don't think so. That's why they downgraded this girl to a 0. And she went online to be a social drama queen. I'm 59 years old, youngsters. You don't think I've seen drama queens before? I lived in a time when we actually lived on manual typewriters, transitioning into word processors like IBM Selectrics, Xerox machines. Portable electronic typewriters, so we'll have a little bit of a screen basis there that you can write your shit on there. And trust me, those damn things were expensive as hell and useful. Now we can just pick up a small Chromebook and try to write our shit online. Technology, what do you expect? But how would that help out when regarding a gender essay? And you're going to be using the Bible as probably as a basis, but not throwing out the verses to substantiate your claim. But talk about it like you know the thing, and they should know the thing because you're talking about it, and therefore they should have an inkling of what you're talking about. And I'm looking at the logic as I'm hearing it coming out of my own mouth, but out of everybody else's mouth, I'm thinking, okay, this is not academic, this is grade school. What are we doing here? Throwing an example from my own before I end up this ranting and raving of mine here. Water break. Okay. There's an author named Donaldson. He's written books. One particular book he's written is the history concerning about World War II all the way through Iraq's Second War, which means well beyond 2001. Not about a space odyssey, but of September 11th. And that world and genre and era we're living through right now, or surviving through. And it's that particular book that, it's one of the major books we're reading, is giving us information about things we went through. And the students are clicking and copying and pasting stuff, and then trying to add their own little words, but it's not, it sounds like an AI writing in there. Me, on the other hand, I'm looking at the stuff and I'm thinking, nah, wait. He may be right about this stuff and he may be right about that stuff. That's not the way I remembered it, so let's counter it. Put his quotation on there, put my understanding about the material, and go through it. Most of the time, I had students not touch the work that I put out. In fact, over the last several weeks. Simply put, I pissed them off or something. Only because I saw other articles relating to one particular topic sentence or another. But I hardly ever touch the Bible for anything. I don't consider the Bible an accurate source of information. In one particular class I was in, Western Civilization, one professor did look at it as a source of information. But not for biblical, not for ideology, but perhaps some stories in there that would relate. For me, it was just a personal choice for reading the book and getting inspiration. But that's all it is to me. Yeah, if you give me another source book of material that I have to cover, give me some questions that I can pull it out of the book, okay, no problem. I'll find something to please the professor, because I want to get the grades. I want to get that diploma. I want to get that certificate saying that I did something. It's not just getting the diploma, guys. It's a distinction. It's a mark. It's telling them you're willing to go through lengths to do the job. The students have an issue concerning about this one. Let me do this on the second video on this one.